7, 6, 5, 4. Here we go, Roger.
On Insights. Two eyes in the middle. INSIIGHTS, where we always talk the talk.
Good morning, good evening. Depends on where you are in the world when we kick this off and you look at it. You got Mickey Clayton, the coach, and you got the reporter, Rick, full of tricks, Brown.
Before I go into my spiel, what is that behind you? That blue, what is that?
There you go.
We talk about this. Yeah. Anyway, it's your reporter. It's your reporter, your favorite reporter's favorite reporter. It's me in the place to be, Ricky B from DC. That's Northeast.
Lord.
Here we go. What's up, Coach? What's going on?
Woo! Boy, I tell you, you need to leave that Coke alone and come over to the other side and try that Pepsi. That's what you need to do. You need to do that right away because you are a little hyper today.
You got the right one, baby.
You got the right one, baby.
Yes, sir.
Man,
yes, sir.
There's so much going on. It really is so much. But I really have to start off with my boy, Rick Brown, with a Rick Brown feature on remembering the legends, Althea Gibson. Boy, this he done missed his calling, y'all. He
3, 2, 1. Here in Wesley Chapel at the Meadow Point tennis courts, and with Wimbledon entering its second week, I thought this was the perfect time and place to remember a pioneer and legend of the game. Now, we all know about the successes of Venus and Serena Williams, as well as Arthur Ashe. Serena has the most Grand Slam titles of anyone in the modern era, and is one behind the all-time slam record. Arthur Ashe became the first black man to win at Wimbledon. Before them, however, it was Althea Gibson who blazed trails and paved the way for their successes. 3 years after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball, in 1950, Gibson became the first African American to participate in the U.S. Nationals, which is now the U.S. Open. And 70 years ago, in 1951, she became the first African American to play at Wimbledon. 5 years later, Gibson became the first African American to win what is now known as the French Open, the first African American to win a major title. She also won the French doubles that year and Wimbledon's doubles that year. But wait a minute, that's not it. The next year in '57, Gibson was the first black to win a major U.S. title by winning the U.S. Clay Court, the U.S. Nationals, and she also won Wimbledon. That's awesome. That's just awesome. And in '58, she not only repeated as the U.S. national champion, but also the Wimbledon singles champion. And she also won the Wimbledon's double title for the third straight year. In all, Althea Gibson won 56 titles, including 11 majors, and was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame in 1971. Though she passed in 2003, the Rattler, yes, Althea Gibson went to Florida A&M, was an icon and a legend. Back to you, Coach.
Man, my dad was in school with her. He said she also was exemplary in golf and said she would come in the gym and shoot jumpers with them and talk shit. I said, what? He said, man, didn't nobody bother Althea. When she came in the gym, they were arguing on whose team she was going to be on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just like when Derrick Magee walked in the gym, everybody wanted to pick him up and get him on the team too. Now, earlier, I wanted to say this, Rick. That was really a really good job. You going out to the tennis courts, doing the thing. You know, I like the transition you making, boy. You kind of doing something here, boy. You kind of act like you went to FAMU or something.
Well, I don't want to brag, about things, but we do brag differently.
Oh, go ahead. There you go. We just different, boy. They hating on us in the SWAC. Hey, we ain't even got there yet.
We haven't even played a game yet. We just got there. They talking smack. Oh, it's a wonderful thing.
If it wasn't for them trying to get Deion Sanders so bad, we would be number one on the wanted list.
You know it. You know it. You already know it.
Now, I got a comment. Our Capital Park team, we talked about them last week, the 14 and under. Man, they get ready to honor them young men again.
Oh,
but
wow.
we took something that we actually made their team the Woodard Award.
Great state of Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. It's Capital Park, JML.
Congratulations to the Tallahassee, Florida Capital Park 14 and under baseball team. They went to Mississippi, competed in the Dizzy Dean National Tournament. And after a send-off by the city of Tallahassee, they finished in third place. Congratulations to them and their parents, coaching staff, for a job well done. There will be a tentative reunion. The city of Tallahassee is scheduled for recognition for them on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Once again, from Insights, congratulations as the first and only team we've ever recognized for Woodard Awards. Congratulations.
That was just so awesome. Did you see the way they strutted out? Had the Florida flag to the side. But what really just caught my eye, though, them tossing out gifts to the other participants in the state. Oh man, that's classy. That's congrats in third place. Something to hold your head up high for. And hey, if you do it again next year, something to shoot for as well. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, from Insights in the city of Tallahassee, that's not tentative. They are recognizing them in the Tallahassee Chamber, 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Awesome.
But now on to today's show. We're going to discuss something that's really gotten kind of heated a little bit. The NCAA really didn't want to do this. They didn't have a choice with the NIL and trying to give these students some money and allow them to get paid for their likeness and everything. And it's been an issue. And now it's on and popping. And rather than try to be able or do all of it, I asked a couple of my friends to help me carry this load. Derrick Magee, he has so many titles and he changes. He never keeps me apprised of the many jobs that he gets. Last I knew, he was associate AD, about to become a PhD. It is Derrick Magee. Now the boy could jump now. Now you get him around that goal, get too close to him, he be trying to dunk on you.
Posterized.
Yeah. He was posterized. He was on that team that won the conference championship and went out and played Duke. And he's always been a young man that was determined to be successful in whatever he did. He's been at University of Cincinnati. He's been at Alabama State. He's at North Carolina Central. Without further ado, let me add to this stream Mr. Derrick Magee.
Coach, how's it going?
Oh, it's better now that you on.
I just been waiting in the wings for my opportunity, Coach. That's all.
Well, that's always you. And when you get that opportunity, you always shine.
Try to make the most of it.
Man, I like that beard coming in like that, man.
Hey, I got to be like Pops. Come on. It's coming in.
And see, you still got a little black in that beard. You know, hold on before you get it all gray.
Hey, I'm holding on as much as possible, Coach.
I know that's right. I'm with you there, man. And with us also, we had a little short run with Mickey and Earl. He's the guy I blame for getting me out on the golf course. The thing I really blame him for because he got my ass out there and left me on my own to try to figure it out. So that ain't been going good. I told you, they talk about you hit it fat. I thought they were talking about me. You know, I hit it fat. What's that mean? He's the former athletic director at Rickards. He's a friend, and we're still playing golf, so we're still a friend. He has a son, EJ, who still has been very, very active with sites and the different things that we do. He's a rising senior at Godby High School, a real good baseball player and developing football player. And Earl was also a coach. So we got Derrick as a parent, Earl as a parent, and I'm going to bring Earl on. That's the legendary Earl. Hey, yes, sir.
What's going on, fellas?
What's up, Earl?
Girl.
Look here. I got two things, Coach, before we get started.
I'm going to mute before you say it.
I finally get to, I ain't gonna say nothing bad. I finally get to meet my favorite reporter. Man, y'all are hilarious. Hey, Rick, I told Nick and Earl was good, but we can't hold a stick to compare to what y'all do. And as far as Derrick, I see he over there in the man cave where I am too.
You know, hey, Earl, you already know. I'm sitting back here.
Ain't nobody coming out here to bother me.
Hey, who's that on the wall right there?
Hey,
Yeah, you don't know?
on the wall. Oh,
That's me,
hey.
baby.
On that
Hey, you know, country boys, you know, we can run, jump, and shoot now.
Let's say your daddy had you
Yes,
jumping up
sir.
on that box. I remember that boy, that vertical boy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I got my grandson jumping on that box right now. He's 7. I got him jumping on the box right now.
He'll be ready. He'll be ready.
Hey, you a perfect example of that. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank y'all for being a part of something that really kind of has me concerned is NIL and how people already signing. Well, the largest I saw was a $2 million contract that was signed. And it's just, my concern is the rich are going to get richer. And I don't see, maybe one of y'all will be able to tell me, but I don't see how that's going to really help the HBCUs doing this, who are already kind of short with money. I know that part of what you do, Derrick, is finances and all of that. Will this have any financial effect on the HBCUs, in your opinion?
Unfortunately, yes, Coach. I mean, just in the past 20 years of working in college athletics on the business and finance side, I've seen that naturally rules like this come out and they only benefit one subgroup of the NCAA Division I population, and that's the Power 5. But I will say that there's opportunities for student athletes in the Olympic sports, student athletes in the Group of 5, the FCS, HBCUs, to try to take advantage of it if they're savvy. First and foremost, here in North Carolina, Governor Cooper just signed an executive order 223 this past July 2nd, kind of opening up everything for NIL, name, image, and likeness for all of the colleges here in North Carolina. Now, naturally, first and foremost, UNC Chapel Hill, Duke, NC State were ready to go. They had everything in place, chomping at the bit, so that their student athletes could take advantage of it. That's where us administrators at the HBCU level, we have to be savvy enough to say, okay, we're going to piggyback and try to make a way for our student athletes as well. So at NCCU, we've already partnered with a subgroup of teamworks called INFLCR verified, and they kind of roadmap everything for the student athletes, try to keep them in compliance so they don't hurt their eligibility moving forward, because there are a lot of pitfalls that can happen from NIL if you're not careful.
Wow, okay. Now you said with HBCUs had to be savvy, and you said some of the Power 5 schools in North Carolina were already ready. Now, what did you mean by ready? What did they have ready to go?
So the NCAA lost out on the opportunity to kind of rail in or ring in NIL from the very beginning, just like they did the Eligibility Center. There was an opportunity to have a NIL center that they would have governed all of this for all of the member institutions for the NCAA. Well, that didn't pass for the majority of the institutions. And it was probably, it'll be a little controversial, but it was led by the Power 5. The Power 5 went out and said, no, we're going to handle things our own way. And that kind of put everybody at a disadvantage, because now everybody's having to scramble to find third parties to help them manage just the influx of what's going to be coming at their student athletes. Let's take, for instance, when I was in college coaching, you were coaching me, we had the big fella, Jerome James. If this was, 25 years later and Jerome is in the same situation, he would have been able to go out and go to the Chevy dealership and be like, hey, put me on the face of your commercials, give me that truck, and look, I'm going to support, Chevy for the duration of my career. And if they see that this young man has an opportunity to go to the NBA, they might jump at that opportunity. And this is why you see these six-figure deals starting to pop up. And we're just in it's July 6th. NIL started July 1. So it's rocking and rolling. Now, I will say this in terms of some of the financial implications. There are some subgroups in the HBCU sector and some of the other smaller schools that could probably take advantage of NIL. One will be the female student athletes. Normally, they carry large bases that follow them. My niece, she's a student athlete at NCCU, a young entrepreneur, does hair, has, thousands and thousands of followers. She will have the opportunity now to capitalize on NIL. Also, you see the female athletes that are in sports like gymnastics, lacrosse. You also have those young ladies who are in women's basketball and volleyball. A lot of these sports, especially on the Olympic side, they have huge followings. They have followings of individuals that really, really support them no matter what. And so they could probably leverage that and take advantage of that. But again, they have to be careful. You can't take money from donors because that's taboo. You got to be careful how everything appears when you're receiving these dollars or receiving these type of sponsorships. And then on the back end, I don't think anybody's really thinking about right now is what are the tax implications of these student athletes once they do get paid and they have to turn over, their dossier to the government because they done made $100,000. They've never had any financial training or whatnot. And it's like, wow, I got to pay. Yeah, I made $100,000. I spent $100,000. You know what I'm supposed to do? No, the government want a piece of that.
Right. Well, Earl, you have a son that's coming out. You also a high school administrator, at least you were, and you've been a coach. At a high school, what do you do? What would you do to prepare these kids as they're now coming out and they're being recruited by different schools relative to this?
First of all, sign us up. We ready to go. Now, here's the thing. And when you look at it from that regard, just as education is important for these college athletes to understand the process and the implications, as Derrick was talking about, it probably is not a bad idea for them to understand that at the high school level. It always continues to, go to the next level. And they're at that age where you got some really good, talented guys out there that can benefit from this. When you look at Master P and his son, I think he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys that signed that $2 million, right? This boy, he's not even on campus yet.
Right.
And so it's going to be important. Now, of course, he has some other benefits because of who his father is and so forth that help him understand along the way. But I think it's important that education, obviously, is going to be needed here for a lot of these high school athletes. And that includes me, parents as well. Because one thing that parents fail to realize is that, number one, they're the first recruiter. And number two, they need to stay on top of what's going on because their kids can positively benefit, but they can also negatively benefit because we know that there's some folks out there that want to take advantage of it.
Well, my concern is we have parents that don't even really pay attention to the clearinghouse and getting the kids eligible academically. They're really not going to understand the NIL, and coaches, I think, would have the ability to take advantage of them by selling them a bill of goods that they might not be able to do.
Well, for me, it's a challenge. Speaking at the high school level, I think there's a challenge that's out there for athletic directors to understand what's going on. There's a challenge for coaches to make sure that they understand how the process works and then pass that along down to those kids, those student athletes, because some of them are going to benefit from it. And so that's a challenge that now administrators and coaches are going to have to meet the need for those students that they're getting ready to send off to school.
Well, would a progressive high school implement some type of educational program to help some of their players develop their social media contacts, put them in touch with programs that come in much like NCCU? Would they do that at a high school to help prepare some of their rising superstars?
They should be doing it anyway. Social media is not going anywhere. That is the way, that's the language that these young students speak. And so we should be doing that anyway. This should not, I guess, transform anything that we or that administrators are doing now. If they're not doing it now, they're doing a disservice to their student athletes. You got to know what to put out there.
Earl, I understand what you're saying, and for the most part, I agree. And while this didn't sneak up to the students here in Florida, around the country, I mean, it's only a handful of states right now who's really doing this. So they may have been caught off guard. So when you say, they're doing a disservice, I kind of disagree with that because it may have snuck up on them. But now that it's here, I mean, they're going to have to fast forward. Derrick, I did want to ask you this, though. You mentioned earlier about pitfalls, and you mentioned one. Could you, for the audience out there, could you go into some of the pitfalls that may come on to these students that they may not have even thought about?
So let's talk about do's and don'ts. And I think that's important when we're discussing, how we're going to help educate some of these high school students that are moving into college that already have just thousands and hundreds of thousands and even sometimes millions of followers on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat. Just all the platforms are dizzying to me as I get older. But let's look at some of the do's and don'ts. And I'll start with the do's just so that we can have a little dossier and talk about that. So NIL related permissible activities are you can own and promote your own business. That's key because you have a lot of the student athletes that are very entrepreneurial. And if they can go out and promote their own business and generate revenue from it and be very, very vocal about it, then they can continue to bring money in. Next, serving as a spokesperson for a local, regional, or national business. So endorsements, selling of merchandise with NIL, maybe not including your school gear, but merchandise for like Nike or Adidas or whomever. Social media endorsements. Those are going to be key and huge, especially for this generation of students who are very, very tech savvy. Representations in video games is going to be key. Participating in autograph sessions that's not associated with their university independently, and then benefiting and profiting from that. Now, let's talk about some of those don'ts, because this will help you lose eligibility, and then you can't really take advantage of your name, image, and likeness, which is, we talked about before, you can't take any cash from any donors, any alums, any boosters, while you're participating in your intercollegiate sport. You just can't do that. That's the NCAA will lock down you for that. Do not use your university's logos or marks to promote yourself. So it has to be independent. It has to be that student athlete themselves doing it, not in association. So if it was Zion Williamson, it couldn't be Zion Williamson with Duke. It has to be Zion Williamson himself. Don't wear your university's apparel or uniforms or the equipment while you're going out trying to promote and do these items too, because then that'll come back on the institution. Do not enter any agreements with sponsors that, are already partners with your university. That type of double dipping could come back negatively. And then at the end of the day, you can't enter any agreements with a brand or a product that may not be aligned with the values of the institution that you're at, or they may negatively impact the institution. So it can't be Derrick Magee and I'm, doing a sponsorship for, the Black NRA, or I'm going to support Marlboro Man, or I'm saying, hey, I'm going to promote cannabis sales. Those are things you can't do, or things that are going to be frowned upon. So I hope, Rick, that helped answer some of your questions. And trust me, there's going to be a long list of other things that you're not going to be able to do, and you will be able to do. This is just a preliminary run at NIL. This is like the very beginning of, we're scratching the surface.
Well, Earl, I have to say, I kind of agree with you. There's probably 16 or 17 states that have legalized this already. North Carolina was one. They just legalized theirs now because that's the way it was going with everybody else. And they could not afford not to pass it and put all of their state schools at a disadvantage. So anybody who really wasn't paying attention would sleep, and sleep at the wheel to the point that it actually hurts their students. And I also, something along that Derrick said, some of the schools like BYU announced their student athletes cannot endorse alcohol, tobacco, gambling, adult entertainment, and coffee products, among others. But Oklahoma came out too. They said you can't prohibits for name, image, and likeness deals, assault weapons, bars and nightclubs, cannabis, even though it's legal in Florida, sports wagering, drugs and alcohol, pornography, pro sports teams, and tobacco. So teams schools are trying to get ahead of it. They actually have some marketing groups that come in to help their student athletes. But one of the things that kind of concerns me, Derrick, you might be able to shed a little light, is that as these people get endorsement deals, if I'm a company, it might be cheaper for me to get endorsement with your star quarterback than to get an endorsement with the university.
And which is a key right there, because if it's a star quarterback, and depending on what the institution is, they may not be able to partner with the institution, but they may be going out, they can go out and partner with that star quarterback and then retain the services and continue to pay him throughout his tenure at the university. And then if that individual does get a shot to go pro, jackpot.
Right. Earl, you were gonna say
couple things, Coach, and that this was for Rick. The word you used was progressive, and that's why those schools should not have been asleep, seeing that this coming along. Number two, what concerns me, I guess, is you've got a system where, again, like Derrick said, you can't go against the values of the particular school or university, i.e., alcohol, cannabis, weapons, etc. What I couldn't understand is why is it that there was not an agreement that you could come together and figure all of this out beforehand? Because it's almost like the Wild West. We gonna let you do this. Your state can do that.
I can tell you, I can answer that because NCAA did not want to do this. They didn't want this right to the absolute bitter end. They didn't want to relinquish this. I mean, they just threw their hands up like last week and were like,
and that's the part that doesn't make sense. If they wanted to be in charge or in control of it, they would have come to the table and put some things together instead of passing the buck. Now you got a situation they can't control nothing. So they are in between a rock and a hard place here. But that's par for the course, as we've seen with what they've been doing throughout the year. So I'm not surprised, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
Mick and Rick have talked about this in the NCAA and their proliferation of old ideas and not being diversified enough to have people on their staff and in their program that can keep them up to date with what's actually going on.
See, they need Derrick Magee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, but see, they don't want that. They don't want a fresh exchange of ideas because they do stuff because they have to do it. And where they were at right now, they had to do it. They're going, which wasn't something we were going to discuss, 12-team playoff. Because there was some conversation that some of those smaller schools, MAC schools, and some of them were talking about doing their own championships. But not University of Cincinnati, they were included in that. And now, since they're going to 12 teams, that discussion has ended because they're now kind of feeling like they'll at least get one of those berths at an opportunity. But that's only because they thought they were going to lose and it was going to be a succession of teams doing their own things. So the NCAA only acts when they have to act because their total control over athletics has slipped out of their hands.
Coach, they're acting in self-preservation.
Yeah.
Let's just be real. Because the Power Five is threatened to leave on several occasions. And the NCAA has bent over and have just conceded so much that all it does is hurt the smaller schools. I mean, you look at schools like Ohio State, Texas A&M, Florida State, with their 150, 160, 200, $250 million budgets. Sometimes their budgets are larger than some of the smaller institutions' general fund budgets. And you telling me we're not a disadvantage already? When I put my, $12, $13 million athletic budget up against UNC Chapel Hill's $115, $120 million budget, I'm at a disadvantage just from the gate. And so now you're putting in legislation that's going to inadvertently affect my student athletes, but help their student athletes. So what does that mean now? Those student athletes who were 4-tier, 5-tier star athletes in football, basketball, and these other sports that were starting to think, okay, I want to go to an HBCU. I want to go down there and be a star at that level. This now deters them and puts them right back on the big boy playing field of Power 5.
Why would it? If we have some players already wanting to transition back to HBCUs, why would this, or how would this rather, change their minds? Because they would still be. It's still about them, though, right?
Let's just be candid here, Rick. If you are a 5-star football player, top tier running back, and you have an opportunity to go to the University of Georgia, running back or Florida A&M, yes, you do have an opportunity. And you're probably going to go pro regardless of wherever you go. But the University of Georgia already has systems in place to make sure you can take advantage of your NIL, your name, your image, and your likeness so that you can monetize that at a higher rate than if you were to go to my great alma mater, Florida A&M. But pretty sure Florida A&M already has this under control, and they're about to blow it out the water because them are boys down there.
Well, see, what's going to stop University of Georgia from having their major sponsor that's a car dealer bring them in and pay them, because there is no limit to what they can pay them for their likeness to support the Cadillac dealership or the Mercedes dealership. You know, it's way too many alumni that belong to these institutions that have been looking for a way to pay these kids.
Above the table.
Oh, and here you go now.
Hey,
and then one thing I thought that you said, Derrick, was when you talked about some of the women athletics and women's sports, and especially through social media, they pay them exceptionally well to be social influencers. And they wear a certain item and they pay them to wear this and to go here, to come to such and such a hotel for your weekend trip, and they take care of them. Take this purse, they take care of them. It's going to be exceptionally difficult for people to try to keep up with this, because right now I think the schools, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Earl, are ahead of the NCAA in this.
Yeah, I got a question. And Derrick might be able to help with this, and you all probably can as well. Are these companies potentially gambling as well on these student athletes? Endorse their products? What happens when there's an injury? What happens if a student athlete unfortunately flunks out of school? How does that work? Has anybody heard anything or know anything about that?
Well, I'll say it's too early in the process right now, but those are things that definitely can happen. Anytime you go and sign an endorsement deal with a young male or young female athlete, you run that risk, especially when they're in the collegiate ranks. You know, you definitely run that risk. What do you think, Coach?
I think that they're going to be able to withdraw that money real quick. If somebody's eligibility goes out or they're no longer able to play, I think that's the end of their dollar. I mean, they will not be able to accrue the amount of money that they were receiving before. And I think that's going to be an easy one to call. And especially since there's no way for them to be able to enforce it. The contracts that they will initiate with these individuals it's going to be tested, because these kids are transferring all over the country, just bing, bing, bing. So what happens when the sponsor out of Tallahassee is doing something for a kid that transfers and goes to South Alabama? That or whatever, then that contract now becomes void, I would imagine. So it's going to be a lot of ugliness around this. And I think, Derrick, what you said too about the tax implications, again, here comes your institution that should be helping to provide some insight into this, because these young men and young women are getting ready to get more money than they thought they would get at a college and don't really know, I don't think, how to handle it. And that's why, Earl, you're here, because we also were concerned about educating these student athletes early at a young age in high school. But you can only do that if you have a progressive high school with an athletic director, because now the principal is going to leave it to the AD to do it. If the AD doesn't do it, then it's fine. But they're going to leave it to the AD to put together some programs and present that to the principal to support and help these kids while they matriculate in the high school system. Because some of these high school kids have very strong social followings already.
Hey, I'll tell you one other thing that's going to be very interesting too in the area of team dynamics. You know, player A has signed a contract to promote themselves and getting all of the shine, but player B, who thinks he or she may be just as good, is getting nothing. What happens to your team dynamics and your team chemistry? How is a coach going to handle that?
What about the coaches that don't let the kids talk as freshmen and do interviews?
John Thompson.
Right. Because even Johnny Manziel was restricted from doing interviews at one point. I mean, so it's going to be one. I heard somebody talk about the coaches who micromanage are going to have problems dealing with this in the locker room, as you just said, Earl.
But I would think as athletes and Derrick and Coach, hey, y'all played at a higher level than I did. But there's always that one guy who thinks they're better than everybody else, who's going to be mad or whatever. Isn't that your job, Coach, or your job, Derrick, as the captain, to rein their asses in and say, look, this ain't about you. This is about us.
That's one more issue for you to deal with 1,000 that you already got.
Right. That you didn't have
now, go ahead, Derrick.
I would say you got eligibility issues you have to think about as a coach and as administrator. You have budgetary concerns because you're trying to make sure that your student athletes are getting the best of the best so they can perform at their level. You got the X's and O's. There's so many moving pieces. Coaches nowadays are CEOs of their programs, and they have to be able to multitask. But adding on just one more piece like that could break the spirit of your team. I mean, especially if what if? Here's a good one for you. What if you got two guys with multiple $100,000 contracts? And now they're going out trying to score 20 each game themselves because they're trying to go for play. You got to be able to manage these different personalities, and I think that's when it becomes the institutions that really have to step up and say, okay, all right, hold on, we're going to give you leeway to do some things, but here are the parameters in which you need to do them. And if you don't follow those parameters,
stop. Okay, I'm Coach Clayton. I'm going to you. You over basketball. You get a call 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm called Derrick. Derrick.
I get these calls.
I know you, man. I'm sorry, but they just told me my boy, my leading scorer, he's down there at the strip club promoting the strip club. He's at the strip club, Derrick. He's down there as many times as we've talked to him. He's at the strip club, and we play North Carolina Central. We got North Carolina A&T in tomorrow. Derrick, I don't know what to do. Somebody gonna get a call like that.
That's a tough call, Coach. Look, hold up. That's look. As a coach, that could be a contract. You either new contract extension or you going home and looking for a new job. Type of situation.
Those type of things are gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they're happening right now, Coach. They're happening right now. But now you're putting in money into it,
right? And see now institutional control and all of that other stuff that you got to now put on a coach that he didn't have to worry about. He or she didn't have to worry about before. These are things these are going to be some real situations that are going to happen. Okay,
Earl, you just called me. Want to know where EJ got that new car from? He ain't had no problem when you took him to school. But EJ riding now. He got a nicer car than you. He got a nicer car than you because he doing a deal with Chevrolet or somebody, and now he got a new car. You gonna call me and want to know what in the hell going on? Right. I'm gonna tell you, Coach. I'm gonna say, Coach, I didn't know he had a new car. He don't drive the way.
It's gonna happen. Yeah.
And when does it trickle down to high school? When will it trickle down? Because it's going to happen.
High school. It's at high school right now.
Yeah. Oh, these high school students, they're already being sponsored by Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. That's why when they get to the college level and they don't have the same perks, they're upset and they're transferring left and right. That's already happening.
Hey, I'll tell you one other thing. Let me push the conversation to the gamers out there. Because I'd have missed some class playing some games before, and wouldn't be opposed to missing work to play some NCAA, right?
Right.
Now, so answer this question, Derrick. you can't use the school logos and things of that nature. That doesn't open this back up for these video game companies, does it?
Yep. So here's the thing: is even though technically you're not supposed to use, or you're supposed not to use logos, or you put their name on your chest when you're doing your endorsements. If you're a top tier student athlete, everybody knows you go to Florida A&M or Florida State or Duke or wherever. So it's kind of understood. And that's why, these companies or these, sponsorships are coming your way. It's because A, number one, you're good at what you do. And B, the brand that you're playing for probably has significant reputation also too, and a significant base of following that they're hoping that's going to transpond into an ROI for them on the sponsorship. So if they're giving you 100,000, they're probably looking to gain 1 million.
Right. I'll tell you one thing is I think disappointing to a lot of the student athletes. Who doesn't want to see themselves in a video game? And it just would make a whole lot of sense if the NCAA would come together and say, let's form a pact or some type of an agreement with these video game companies, and you using our images and our likenesses and so on and so forth, and put something in place so that those student athletes can benefit from that. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. I don't think these guys or girls are asking for millions of dollars, but the opportunity to be able to get some type of stipend or supplement or something so that they can have that type of fun. You only get this opportunity one time. And
I think the issue with that is that there's already some legal action in place right now against earlier when they had the football and all, and people sued the NCAA and EA Sports. So yeah. I don't know that has even been resolved yet. You know what the companies tend to do as best they can is extend it as far as they can
and weigh you down.
That's right. So they don't have to pay you because they got enough lawyers on retainer. You don't have money to do that. But what I do want to say is this has been, I think, one heck of a discussion and healthy discussion in terms of what's going on, the effect that it's going to have on HBCUs because we cannot compete with them, and the fact that they're going to use it to help recruit the kids, and the fact that they will be able to use it to make sure that they get paid for their likeness by somebody that's going to pay them. And then on our end is to lose money that people are that may have given to the athletic department that they're now giving to Johnny Henry, the leading scorer on the football team, leading scorer on the basketball team, or the quarterback, that now they circumvent whatever we were trying to get them to do with the university. So even in athletics, and Derrick knows this, athletics always has to draw the line to make sure that even when you're in fundraising, you don't touch or cross paths with development and the president and all of those entities that may already be getting money from Xerox, that you can't ask them because they're on the president's list. And now you've lost somebody else that was on your list because they did a deal with your football player. And they got by cheaper than what you were getting by. So where you might have been getting $75,000, you now not getting anything because they're paying that kid 10, and they are elated to get that deal. No. But what I really want to do is thank you guys for joining in, and this is probably one of our longest shows that we've had. And it was really good, and we had a really good dialogue, and I appreciate both of you and your input. I really do. We had tried to do it last week. We couldn't quite line it up, but I knew that this was a hot topic coming. Everybody didn't agree with me, but I knew this was coming. And this stuff here, it ain't over. It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Because it's going to be changing, ever changing, and changing as they make mistakes. Right. They're going to just try to cover that up and do something else.
They're going to have to change it, Rick, because it's going to be so much abuse to the system. And like Derrick said, the Power Five want to do what they want to do anyway. You know, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. You know, we look for them to do their own thing at any given time. You know, I just again, and I keep hammering this. I just really wish the HBCUs would go on and do their own thing. Don't worry about what the Power Five or anybody else does. Have our own academic requirements. Look after our kids and do our own thing. I just think that's the way to go.
The fan base is out there for that. The fan base and the money is out there. It's proven time and time again when we have classics. The fan base is there and the dollars are there to support our HBCUs if we decided to, hey, we can go our own path and we can educate and give our student athletes the opportunities and our students in general the opportunities that they need so they can be successful. Hey, the NCAA ain't throwing money our way. They're throwing money to the Power Five.
That's right. What they give us is really chump change.
Yeah.
It's really chump change. But again, gentlemen, I appreciate y'all being a part of this.
Thank you, God.
Man, I really have appreciated the input from both of you, and you've given us some things to and our audience to listen to. And in closing, we're going to close now and do our closing, but we appreciate you since we're so far over time. We appreciate you being here and being a part of Mick and Rick. Hit the button down there, subscribe to us, like us, give us a thumbs up, send a link to your friends, or give us some comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think. Give us your comment. I might not like it, but I'll for sure read it. We appreciate y'all.
Stay up to date with the latest from Insights. Visit our website at insights.com. Two I's in the middle, INSIIGHTS.com.
Insights is the copyright of Mac4 Enterprises, a Florida corporation. This broadcast is produced under the exclusive ownership of Mac4 Enterprises and is the intellectual property and trademark of Mac4 Enterprises. Comments of the host and other individual speakers on Insights represent their independent thoughts and representation.